Hello and welcome to Maximum Aaliyah, the first talking book about the artist. It was written and researched by Ben Graham, music is by Amanda Thompson and it's read by Sian Jones. You can check out our full catalogue on our website at www.chromedreams.co.uk.
I knew by the time I was 8. I would tell my mother, but I went on Star Search at 10, and around that age, 9 and 10, I used to ask her every day, did someone call about signing me, have you heard anything?
The date is August the 25th, 2002. The place, New York's Times Square. In one of the busiest, most cosmopolitan thoroughfares in the world, business is continuing as usual. Traffic is moving. Street vendors are hawking. Summer tourists are merging with local workers, businessmen and families. The homeless and the crazy, the pickpockets, the junkies and the whores, the religious preachers and political activists, all are busying themselves beneath the vast electric billboards, neon signs and digital video screens. But somewhere in the centre of it all, another light is blazing. Throughout the warm urban night, a group of mourners has gathered, serious, respectful, dedicated to the memory of someone that most of them never met, yet who they still hold in love and reverence. They are black and white, male and female, mostly young, mostly fashionably dressed in the latest streetwear. Some of them would normally be spending this evening going clubbing, or hanging out with their homies, or babysitting, or doing their homework. Instead, they are gathered for a candlelit vigil to mark the first anniversary of the death of their idol, the singer, actress, producer, model and artist Aaliyah. Aaliyah was just 22 when she died, yet she left behind her a legacy of work, the importance of which continues to grow in the wake of her passing. Over the course of 3 albums, the first recorded when she was just 14, and a handful of scattered tracks, she both reflected and defined the direction of soul, R&B and hip-hop music throughout the 1990s. Her choice of producers and writers, from R. Kelly to Timbaland and Missy Elliott, was emblematic of mainstream black music's stylistic shift over the course of the decade, from lush orchestrated ballads to tough minimalist urban grooves. In addition, she was one of the few artists to successfully cross over from music to films and back again, gaining both critical acclaim and commercial success for her starring roles in Romeo Must Die and the posthumously released Queen of the Damned. While barely out of her teens, she had achieved what many rock stars turned actors, from David Bowie and Mick Jagger to Sting and Mariah Carey, have been striving for well into middle age. There is no doubt that had she lived, her success in this field would have continued to grow, with major roles in the 2 Matrix sequels in production at the time of her death. Aaliyah also had success with film soundtracks, receiving an Oscar nomination for her song Journey to the Past from the film Anastasia, and acting as executive producer on the Romeo Must Die score, to which she contributed 3 tracks that were to become smash hit singles, including the #1 pop hit Try Again. After she was killed, it was revealed that she'd been cast as the romantic lead in Some Kind of Blue, a film set during the 1958 Newport Jazz Festival, about a fan who falls for the daughter of his musical hero. Had this role come about, it would have broadened Aaliyah's acting range beyond the world of action thrillers and won her belated recognition among serious cinemaphiles. The fans gathered to mourn and remember her life and passing in Times Square that night were well aware of her importance and achievements, and the double tragedy of her being taken from us so young. For not only had a warm, beautiful and caring young woman been cut down while still only beginning to live her life, but a great artist had been lost who had only been able to hint at her full creative potential. A year on, and the first posthumous album of her unreleased work was just about to be released. Entitled I Care For You, it was a compilation of previously available material and 5 new tracks, including the song I Miss You, which was a hit single in the latter part of 2002. While somewhat patchy and unsatisfactory as either a tribute to her life, a greatest hits package or a lost album, the record served to prove the point that Aaliyah's presence on the music scene is far from diminished by her death. In January of 2002, she received the American Music Awards for Best Soul R&B Artist and Best Soul R&B Album, and the following month, Queen of the Damned became the #1 movie in America in its first week of release. Elsewhere, her influence can be felt in the music of everyone from Missy Elliott to Alicia Keys. Aaliyah may have left this world, but her music and her creativity remain.
I performed with her in Las Vegas at Bally's Hotel at age 11 for 5 nights. I would come out in the middle of her show and sing Home, and then we would sing Believe in Yourself together. And she told me, you've got to learn how to move and work an audience and, really perform.
Aaliyah Haughton was born on January the 16th, 1979, in the same Bedford-Stuyvesant district of Brooklyn, New York, as the rapper who would become known as the Notorious B.I.G. It was a decent enough working-class black neighbourhood, not exactly what you'd call the ghetto, but the street corners where the hustlers and the crack dealers hung out weren't too far away either. Perhaps with this in mind, Aaliyah's parents upped and left Brooklyn when their daughter was just 5 and moved west to America's Motor City, Detroit, Michigan. Then again, maybe Detroit wasn't a much better place to bring up a child. Since the infamous race riots of the late 1960s, Detroit's once famous industries had packed up in droves, leaving the once thriving inner city a ghost town of empty, crumbling buildings, abandoned warehouses, poverty and gangs. Those families that could afford it, mainly white, moved out to the suburbs, adding and increasing to the social decay of the city centre. But Aaliyah's parents had one positive reason for moving to Detroit: family. When Aaliyah, her parents Diane and Michael, and her brother Rashad arrived in the Motor City, they found waiting for them Diane's brother, Barry Hankerson, his son Jomo, who was 8 years older than Aaliyah, and his wife, the soul legend Gladys Knight. With her backing group, the Pips, Knight had been responsible for some of the most enduring songs and performances in popular music history, including If I Were Your Woman and Midnight Train to Georgia. Although a southern soul singer from Atlanta, it was no surprise to find Knight now resident in Detroit, home of the famous Motown label, which in the early 1960s first put black American music, soul and R&B into the mainstream, launching such artists as Smokey Robinson, The Temptations, Diana Ross and the Supremes, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye and the Jackson 5, including of course baby brother Michael. Motown songs also formed the basis for the Beatles' earliest albums, and can probably be credited with inventing modern popular music as we know it now. Detroit also produced some of the most groundbreaking rock music of the late 60s and early 70s. And in the 80s, the city was busy inventing techno, as the abandoned warehouses of the city centre hosted some of the earliest rave and house parties. Detroit then was a town founded on music, and Aaliyah's family were intimately connected to this tradition. Her uncle too had a long-standing history in the entertainment business, and there was always music playing in the house when Aaliyah was growing up, with the latest releases from Whitney Houston and Luther Vandross playing alongside soul classics by the likes of Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye. Aaliyah's mother had aspired to be a professional singer and actress herself when she was younger, and got as far as releasing a record and singing in plays that toured the country. But by the time her daughter was born, she had settled into teaching. When the family moved to Detroit, she gave that up too to be a full-time mother and housewife, while her husband and brother went into business together. The two families lived just 5 blocks apart in a nice middle-class neighbourhood on the west side of Detroit, and Aaliyah, her brother Rashad and her cousin Jomo became inseparable. Aaliyah's upbringing was full of love, music and pets, everything from cats and dogs to ducks and iguanas. Aaliyah, like her mother, was forever singing around the house, and it soon became apparent that she'd inherited both her talent and her aspirations. Music was part of her personality, and singing came as naturally to her as breathing or eating. Already strikingly beautiful as a child, she was apparently born with a full head of lustrous black hair and with an Arabic name that roughly translated means highest, most exalted one. It looked like Aaliyah was destined to become Detroit's next star.
It takes a lot of work to be a good dancer, as it takes a lot of work to be a good singer and to be a good actress. I believe in honing your craft no matter what it is that you do. And to this day, I still take dance lessons. I just recently took up Latin because it's just something I always wanted to do. So it takes, hard work and discipline and a love for it.
Aaliyah attended Gay Sioux Elementary, a private Catholic school where she was popular and attentive. Religion was as important a part of her upbringing as music, giving her a solid, stable foundation of faith from which to grow. At the age of 6, she made her first appearance on stage in the school production of Annie, a part that required 3 hours of rehearsals every day after school and also on weekends and holidays. She had a small part as one of many unnamed orphans and got to say one line. But as she remembered in an interview years later, she made that one line shine, and the experience left her hooked. Aaliyah knew what she wanted to do with her life. She wanted to perform. Naturally shy, she found that being on stage brought her out of herself. It enabled her to express the fire she felt burning within, and to win the attention and admiration of an audience. She also loved the camaraderie of putting on a show, and at Gay Sioux Elementary, the children were involved in every stage of production, from lighting to prop design. Pupils ranged in age from 5 to 13, and the school took its annual plays very seriously. Aaliyah went on to play larger roles in versions of 42nd Street and Hello Dolly, quickly developing into a singing, dancing and acting all-rounder. It was natural then that after Gay Sioux she should go on to enroll in Detroit's High School for the Fine and Performing Arts, which opened its doors in 1992, just as Aaliyah became eligible for entry. Potential students were required to have an exceptional grade point average before applying, and if they passed the compulsory audition, to maintain that average throughout their time at the school. If at any time they dropped below this academic level, they would be asked to leave. Always disciplined and hard-working, Aaliyah managed not only to maintain but exceed this standard, while also pursuing her musical ambitions. Aaliyah had enrolled at the school after its founder and principal, Denise Davis Cotton, had run into her parents at a movie theatre and recommended her school as a place where Aaliyah's talent could be developed. Then 13, Aaliyah was already well known locally as a budding singer and performer. From the age of 8 onwards, she'd been singing in church, at school functions, local talent shows and family weddings. At the age of 10, she began taking singing lessons outside of school, with one Gwendolyn Peddy, who worked on developing Aaliyah's distinctive high, light vocals and on practical techniques such as breath control and emotional expression. Although, as a 10-year-old, Aaliyah had not yet lived enough to be able to empathise fully with the emotional range of the songs she was singing, she had a great voice and a powerful imagination. The rest would come with time. Aaliyah's parents were right behind their daughter and supportive to the last. Once they knew that she was serious about her ambitions, they did whatever they could to help her. For her audition for the School for the Performing Arts, she sang the hymn Ave Maria in Latin. Davis Cotton was impressed with her voice, her personality, and her politeness, not to mention her determination and desire to succeed. It was these qualities, perhaps, that most impressed those around her, that she was so focused from an early age. Uncle Barry also used his showbiz connections to get Aaliyah auditions for television shows and record companies from an early age. At 10, she appeared on the nationwide TV talent show Star Search, singing the jazz standard My Funny Valentine in a white dress made for her by her grandmother. In appearing on this somewhat cheesy showcase slot for preteen wannabes, she was following in the footsteps of past winners like Destiny's Child and Christina Aguilera, as well as those who didn't win like Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake. Unfortunately, Aaliyah was also to fall into the latter category. On hearing that she hadn't made it through to the final heats, Aaliyah burst into tears. But she could take some consolation in the fact that the show's host later claimed that he immediately recognised an innate talent in her that couldn't have been instilled by any amount of coaching from teachers and parents. She had a personal magnetism and charisma that went beyond more technical ability. That had more to do with passion, belief and soul. It was something that her famous aunt, Gladys Knight, also recognised. Aged 11, Aaliyah joined her on stage for a run of 5 nights at the Las Vegas casino. It was an invaluable experience, with Aaliyah learning firsthand how to work a big stage and how to have fun while entertaining an audience. Vegas is the big time. A distinctly adult world where any performer has to grow up fast no matter what their age. But Aaliyah took it in her stride. She already had it, Knight remembered, that spark the world would later see and fall in love with. From an early age, I knew she had enormous talents and an intrinsic gift.
Right now, I'm listening to Casey and JoJo. Love Casey and JoJo. Big Pun. I like SWV, Missy.
The title of R. Kelly's debut album, born in the 90s, could be seen as misleading. While the record was released in 1991, its creator came into this world in 1967, and he was 26 by the time he achieved mainstream success with his second set, 1993's 12 Play. Hits like Your Body's Calling and Bump and Grind were lascivious, sexually obsessed paeans to the ladies, delivered with pristine hip-hop beats, schmaltzy strings and a sense of epic grandeur. Kelly's vocals moved from sultry murmur to soaring multi-octave passages of yearning and rapture, like some ghetto fusion of Marvin Gaye, Prince and Barry White with pecs. He was also a devout Christian, whose songs displayed an old-fashioned sense of religious morality alongside their fixation with sex. He would later score his biggest hit with the global smash I Believe I Can Fly from the Space Jam soundtrack, before being dogged by accusations of paedophile behaviour, accusations that, with hindsight, cast his relationship with Aaliyah in an altogether murkier light. R. Kelly knew Aaliyah through her uncle Barry Hankerson, who was also his manager. Hankerson had brought Kelly over to Aaliyah's house when she was just 10 or 11, before his first album came out, and had her sing for him. Kelly was impressed, and Hankerson immediately saw the potential in having him work with his young niece. Within a couple of years, he had launched his own independent record company, Blackground Enterprises, and Aaliyah was his first signing. He went on to broker a distribution deal for Blackground with Jive Records, the label to which R. Kelly was signed. And soon the pair were working together on Aaliyah's debut album. There was an immediate chemistry between them, and with Hankerson acting as executive producer, R. Kelly produced, wrote and played the majority of the instruments on what was to become Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, released in 1994. The title raised a few eyebrows, as at the time neither Aaliyah nor her record company would say exactly how old she was. They later claimed that they didn't want her age to be an issue, but if this was the case, the ploy had the opposite effect. The sultry beats and suggestive lyrics were typical R. Kelly material, and controversial enough when delivered by a 26-year-old male, but portrayed by a young girl who seemed able to mix a childlike innocence with a distinctly adult knowingness. The effect was both startling and unsettling. And later that year, the controversy exploded when Vibe magazine printed what purported to be a certificate of marriage between Aaliyah and Kelly. "I don't really comment on all that because I know it's not true," Aaliyah said. "We're close and people took it the wrong way. I'm not married to Aaliyah or whatever Vibe magazine wrote," Kelly added. The pair continued to deny that they were married or even had a sexual relationship, maintaining that they were just good friends. Yet on his song No One Knows How to Love Me Quite Like You Do, Kelly could be heard repeatedly chanting, "Aaliyah, you're the only one for me." The rumour went that Kelly and Aaliyah were very much in love, so much so in fact that Kelly had sent his bodyguards to fetch Aaliyah to join him while he was on tour, and that she'd followed him to Chicago. There, the 15-year-old had obtained fake ID and married her 26-year-old lover in a hotel room. The Vibe marriage certificate had listed Aaliyah's age as 18, which it would have to, as the marriage would be illegal and void were she any younger. Whatever the truth of the matter, by the end of the year, the relationship, both personal and professional, seemed to be over, with Aaliyah saying, "R. Kelly is a wonderful producer and a wonderful artist, but that time was very tense, so it's really not appropriate for us to see each other." Again, the rumour was that Aaliyah's father had threatened to put Kelly in jail, banned the pair from seeing each other, and immediately packed Aaliyah off to Europe and Japan for several months. Inevitably, the media had a field day, with speculation rife over the stories and the singer's real age. For the rest of her life, she would refuse to discuss the scandal. 2 years later, when she admitted to being 17, all she would say was that she was not married, but refused to comment on whether she ever had been. Even without the rumours of marriage and the possibility of a sexual scandal, there was already the danger that Aaliyah could merely be seen as R. Kelly's protégé, rather than as an artist in her own right. Her early image was very much as a baby girl version of her mentor, all dark glasses and baggy streetwear, unsmiling and mysterious. It was as though she was unwilling to project any kind of personality of her own, preferring instead to be an enigmatic blank canvas onto which fans and journalists could project their own conclusions and desires. Like many black urban artists, she was portrayed in a way that attempted to emphasise her rebellious, streetwise credentials, and no mention was made of the straight-A student who lived in a nice neighbourhood and who had been groomed for showbiz from an early age. The connection with R. Kelly was useful in so much as it got her noticed and allowed her to develop with a proven hit formula. But in the long run, if Aaliyah was going to establish her own identity as an artist, she would have to break away from her mentor. What was remarkable was how quickly she managed to do just that.
I like to stay home. I'm a homebody. I like to rent movies. Occasionally I like to do something that's really fun, like laser tag or go bowling or just go out to an arcade. But other than that, I like to kick it at home, invite my friends over, go to my friend's house and just laugh.
Aaliyah's debut single was the lilting, seductive and sensually smooth groove of Back and Forth, which immediately hit number 1 on the R&B hip-hop radio play charts and made the Billboard Top 5 in 1994. Ironically, the song that Back and Forth knocked off the R&B top spot was R. Kelly's Your Body's Callin'. Back and Forth was even sampled by Madonna on her hit single of the same year, Inside of Me. It was like being acknowledged by pop royalty. Maybe Madonna saw in Aaliyah the same mixture of determination, talent and precociousness that she herself had exhibited at that age. Or maybe she just wanted to borrow some street credibility from a rising star of the new generation. Either way, it was a sure sign that Aaliyah had arrived and was being taken seriously. The follow-up, At Your Best, You Are Love, was a cover of an old Isley Brothers hit and made number 2 on the R&B charts and the Billboard Top 10. Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, the album, had been awash with R. Kelly's trademark beats and strings, and this had done it no harm whatsoever. It was Kelly's name that got her noticed, and his distinctive sound that had gained her airplay and helped her win over audiences on the streets and in the suburbs. In many ways, his smooth Jeep beats were the perfect setting for her light, sensual vocals, creating a new hybrid sound that referenced classic soul and funk and contemporary hip-hop in equal measures. Her soft, breathy falsetto contrasted with the hard-edged groove and raw rhythms of the backing. And there was none of the over-emoting and vocal acrobatics of divas like Whitney Houston or Mariah Carey. Aaliyah's style was cool and laid back, innocent yet sophisticated, uptown and streetwise all at the same time. It was hard to know where Aaliyah fitted in, and for a while she was labelled alongside a disparate group of other innovative black artists as neo-soul. But all that neo-soul artists like D'Angelo, Maxwell and Erykah Badu seemed to have in common was an ability to confuse radio programmers and journalists who didn't quite know where to put them. The light, hip-hop jam of Down with the Clique was another hit single, as was an edited version of the title track. The LP itself achieved platinum sales, before its progress was slowed by the R. Kelly marriage rumours scandal. Yet, with Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, Aaliyah was ahead of her time, forging an urban crossover sound that by the end of the 90s would dominate American music. For anyone, this would be an achievement. But for someone barely into her mid-teens, it was astonishing. Other girls her age were worrying about their homework and whether boys liked them. Aaliyah was doing all that, but she was also appearing on MTV and the cover of music and fashion magazines around the country, performing before audiences of several thousands, shooting videos and attending swanky VIP parties. She was a role model for millions of other teenagers who recognised in her unique style something they could all connect with. She was the girl next door made good, down to earth but slightly aloof as well. An example of this is how she invited her schoolmates along to one of her video shoots as a work experience project, or hired them as backing dancers. She hadn't forgotten where she came from, but she wasn't letting where she came from forget where she was going either.